Okay, today on the bench we have yet another President Electronics radio for review. Today this is the Johnson 2 USA. So like the other radios, it's a 12 and 24 volt radio. Nice to see this has the ASC circuit. I have not opened the box yet. Just from looking at the front of it, I can see it's a front-firing speaker. I kind of like that. I mean, the speakers are small, but they do sound really good in these radios. But the main reason I like that is it keeps the sound pointed in the direction of my face, if nothing else. You know, most radios have the speaker facing straight down. In mobile applications, that would be your floorboard. If you're using a mobile radio as a base station, well, you have to set the radio up on something so you can actually hear the speaker, because it's going to be setting flat on your table. So yeah, that's one nice thing I like. Looks like the no channel selector knob on this radio. This one just uses, so no channel selector switch or rotary encoder. This just has push buttons. So let's get the box cracked open here and see what we got in here. Right side up so I'm not dumping stuff all over the bench here. And this looks new. What is this? Oh, okay, it's just the rest of the paperwork. Yeah, the warranty card. So yeah, this is just like their other radios. Really good warranty out of the box, 2 years. And if you buy a President antenna at the same time you buy one of their radios, it adds an additional 3 years to your radio warranty. Okay, this is the paper for microphones. So if you wanted to use another microphone, they actually have the pinout of the microphones, which is nice. A lot of manufacturers don't do that. They leave you wondering. So, you know, if you want to get an A-static or some other fancy microphone, they frequently, you'll see people asking online, how do I wire my mic? Well, it's right there in the box. Is it my imagination, or are these President stickers getting bigger? That's like really big. I gotta turn around. Yeah, that's like twice the size of the original one. So yeah, it looks like the President stickers are getting even bigger. Oh, they're actually including FCC rolls now. I haven't seen one of those for a long time. And the manual. Where's that? Come on. Have the accessory pack. Oh, we got microphone, power cord, mounting hardware, the normal. Actually, I don't need the power cord. I'll be using my own power cord. Crinkly plastic out of the way. Don't need the mounting bracket for a review. Okay, well, you've got some weight. And it looks like this one is a, I'd have to check either online or check the manual, but this looks like this is probably a DIN size radio as well. Now, just give me a second here. Yeah, it looks like, I'm just holding that up to a McKinley that I have mounted on the underside of the bench here. It looks like it's the same size as the President McKinley. And the President McKinley also has a front-firing speaker. But there you go. There she is out of the box. They're turned around here. So this has, looks like this has a Vox feature as well. So if you want to do a voice-operated transmit. Let's see what the published specs are on this. And English is the first one. Okay, published specs. Of course, this is a 40-channel radio. This is an AM-only radio, so normal 26965, 27405. Let's see, it's 2.2 pounds. This is an Electrolytic microphone, which is nice. And these microphones actually sound pretty good. I mean, a lot of radios, not just President, but a lot of manufacturers are starting to switch to the Electrolytic microphone cartridges. a lot of cases they're just cheaper than a lot of the dynamic cartridges, but they sound better. And you can get a lot more gain out of the microphone cartridge using an electric microphone cartridge. But yeah, transmit allowance plus minus 200 hertz. So that's your transmit frequency tolerance. Carrier power 4 watts, obviously. Transmission interference. Inferior. When they say inferior, what they mean is less than or minus 60 dBc. Audio response 300 hertz to 3 kilohertz. Microphones. Anyway, where's the current? Okay, current drain with modulation 2 amps. Modulated signal distortion 1.8%. That's not bad. Maximum sensitivity 10 dB. Signal plus noise. The noise ratio is 0.6 microvolts or minus 111 dBm. Not too shabby. Adjacent channel selectivity 60 dB. That's also not too bad. Any other important numbers here? Let's see. Image rejection again 60 dB. Intermediate frequency rejection rates 70 dB. So that's good. And current drain and receive 300 milliamps to 1,000 milliamps. Just kind of curious, 1,000 milliamps, or that'd be 1 amp. Well, I guess that would be if you had the volume turned up the whole way. I was trying to think here in my head, what in the heck would this radio need 1 amp in receive for? But yeah, I guess if you turn the volume up the whole way. So there's the specs on it. So first thing we're going to do, of course we're not going to fire it up. We're going to tear it apart. We want to see the inside. I have not peeked in this yet, so I have no idea. I do have the service manual for this, but honestly, I didn't even look over it yet, so I don't know if this has any adjustments in it, or if this is like the President Ronald, where it's an adjustment-free radio. I kind of get the feeling this one has a full layout of adjustments in here for like receive, transmit, power, sensitivity, and all the trimmer resistors you'd expect. Just because of the size, like I said, it kind of looks like a McKinley, and why would you make the radio so big if it was, a micro-sized board? So, but let me get her cracked apart, and we'll take a look. So I'll be back in a second, and then after we get done taking a look at the inside, we can hook it up and actually do some testing and see how it performs. Okay, so here she is all torn apart now. As you'd expect, good clean layout. I can't say I see any bodge parts whatsoever, so no parts just plopped on the the bottom of the board or tacked on the top, so doesn't look like there was any afterthoughts. Design nowadays is just getting so much cleaner, and the reflection of this light, let me move my light here, it's really killing me. It's a little bit better, I think. That'll work. So let's see here. So we can see built-in SWR bridge back here. Microcontroller, they've been pretty much, I think it's what they're using on most, President's using on most of the radios, is they're using a Renesas microcontroller. So this is a 16-bit, runs at 24 megahertz. One of the advantages with this, the one that they're using here, is this is also the LCD driver, so you'll notice the front circuit board on this. There really aren't many active components on this. There's nothing hiding underneath the ribbon cable. So this does not have a master and a slave PLL IC. It just has one, or not PLL, microcontroller. It doesn't have a slave and a master microcontroller. This chip here directly drives the LCD. So that helps to cut down on components needed. Really the only other parts on this board up here, other than some resistors and diodes, and of course on the front there's going to be all the backlighting LEDs. About the only other thing is these 3 transistors here, and those are actually what turn on the different LEDs. So this does have the multicolor display, and that's what these transistors do, is they actually turn on those different LEDs, strings of LEDs. PLL, that's back here. It's a BU2630. Now that is a dual PLL, so here's its 10.240 megahertz reference oscillator. It is a dual PLL. In case for people that aren't familiar with that, it's basically 2 completely separate PLLs in one. Yeah, it does the job of 2 completely separate PLL ICs. Reason they need that is this circuit over here. This is the weather radio. I might not have mentioned that in the beginning of the video. Probably saw it on the box, but yes, this does have the weather radio function. So this PLL is the PLL for the CB radio. It uses one of them for that. The other PLL in this IC is used for the weather radio. Actually, speaking of the weather radio, that IC right there, that's the that's an MC. God, what is it? I gotta look at it. It's like a 3361, I think. Yeah, MC 3361. That's the FM receiver IC. So most of this circuitry back here is your for the FM circuit for the weather radio. So crystal filter and the ceramic filter here. Let's see, this big IC over here should be the transmit mixer. Yeah, 7310. So yeah, this is using a YD73105. That's the transmit mixer. Kind of obvious just by its layout. It's in the it's in the final amplifier section here. So you have your mixer circuit and comes back to the final amplifier. Like with most of the other President radios, if you look down along here, and it's a lot of people have commented and asked me about that. The President radios run hot. Well, it's not just the President radios. It's all radios like this of this design and layout. They'll note that one side of the radio tends to seem like it gets really warm. Well, if this radio is facing upright, the left side, it's going to. And most radios, not just President, a lot of your other radios that are designed like this, where they're using mainly surface mount style boards, you'll notice that one side of the radio is going to get warmer than usual. That's because the radios are using a lot of power even when they're in receive. They're using microprocessors that can be kind of power hungry. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like this thing is an enormous power consumer, but a lot of the parts in here are using more power than a lot of older radios would need when they're in receive. So the current draw may be a little bit higher. Well, that's all being done through voltage regulators in this area here. You've got the main regulator over here. And in addition to that, there are two audio ICs. That's kind of becoming common. I've noticed on a lot of the President radios. So there's actually one here and there's one here. Okay. The reason they use two separate audio ICs is instead of sharing the audio IC between receive audio and your transmit audio, they're using individual ICs. So your modulation's basically on one, your receive is on the other one. So that's why they have two of them. I think that pretty much covers most of the active components. This is a dual conversion radio. So it is nice to see, and this should have fairly good, not just receive sensitivity, but just the reception should be a little bit clearer, a little bit lower noise. Just because of the design of this, the way they go about this is, yeah, that's pretty good in that orientation there. So basically your signal's coming through in this direction here. You're going to start out with your received signal, from the antenna jack. It receives off the air. The PLL synthesizer circuit's going to generate the the VCO output frequency is going to be in the 16 megahertz range. I think it's like 16.27 to 16.71, I think, in these. But that signal gets mixed with a 10.695 megahertz signal. When you mix that, the output is 10.695. So this has a monolithic crystal filter. So that and that's one of the things that's going to help to give this radio a little bit clearer receive with a little bit less noise, is just the receiver design. But that goes through the 10.695 monolithic crystal filter. That signal then gets mixed with the 10.240. So yes, they're using the same 10.240 reference oscillator that they're using for the PLL. That is also being used as one of the mixing frequencies for receive on these. So that 10.695 gets mixed with the 10.240. The result of that is your 455 kilohertz signal. That goes through the the normal little black box that pretty much any AMCB radios had for pretty much since there have been solid-state radios. But that'll go through the 455 ceramic filter, and then comes out of that and goes through your AM detector circuit for demodulation. But like I say, just that design there should help clear it up, because it's actually going through two filters, dual conversion. It's got the monolithic crystal filter and the ceramic filter here. The final in this is a IRF 520, 2SC, what the heck is that, 20, I think off the top of my head, like a 2314, I think it is. So yeah, the 2SC 2314, if I'm not mistaken, drives the IRF 520 final. Now, as far as adjustments, I said wouldn't know until I opened it up. So this is a tune-free receiver. So all of the receiver circuitry in this is being done with fixed inductors. So there are no adjustments from the look of it for receiver sensitivity. So they are what they are. Advantage of that is, a lot of people complain about that. Oh, Mike, there's no adjustments in there. I can't tweak it. Well, honestly, you'd have a hard time getting it better than what they can do with fixed inductors. The big advantage of those fixed inductors is, as I've said before, you don't have components sticking up off the board. You don't have wires hanging out. There's a resistor right there. What is that? I'm going to have to look into that. Why would they need... Yeah, I know, off topic, but it's not like President. Actually, any of these manufacturers do these surface mount radios. That resistor is needed. Big one right there. Okay, that's needed for heat dissipation. That's why they're using a big resistor there. But why is that not surface mount? I got to look that up. Maybe in a later video, but I'm going to have to look that resistor up and see what that is. Is that like some secret modification there? It is in the PLL area. It's close by, and there's a couple test points there, so that could even be part of an alignment. Like I said, I haven't even really looked at the service manual on this. They might have stuck that on there maybe for the alignment, but yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that. But anyhow, yeah, they can do such a good job with the receivers, like I say, or even the transmit circuits. You'll see all these little black dots down here. In the camera view, probably just look like black dots. They're all inductors. It's just a lot more stable. For starters, the parts mounted directly to the circuit board, so you don't have wires like you have with all these tunable transformers here coming up through the cans. Just the spacing of the wires and whatnot can make every individual component a little bit different from radio to radio, where these are very easy to make almost exactly the same. They can very precisely control capacitance and inductive of the circuit board. So all these circuit traces, they're all exactly the same. So, there's not a lot of variance from radio to radio. So, yeah, they can do with fixed inductors what back in the day they had to do with tunable parts. But the transmit circuit is still tunable. So, yeah, it does have at least 3 adjustments here for the mixer stages in the transmit circuit. Does look like a full complement of trimmer resistors. So yeah, we got what, 1, 2, I'm just look around the board here, see if I can count them all. See if there's any other ones tucked around in here. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's going to be I can just see by that one, that one's going to be your FM squelch for the the weather receiver. Actually, that one may be... I'm not sure by that location, but yeah, there are a couple adjustments in this radio. So this one is not adjustment free. This one does have a little bit of tweakability, which is nice. I have mixed feelings about the non-tunability of radios. It's more reliable. It's more consistent from radio to radio. There's less stuff for people to get in here and break and screw up. From a repair guy's standpoint, it's great. I open up a radio, there's less broken ferrite core. You have no idea how many of these blasted cores I extract a month because they're cracked and broken and shattered, and I don't know what people, using their metal screwdrivers, but if they ain't in here, they can't break them. Downfall of that is, there probably is a little bit... Like I said, they can get this so close with all of these fixed inductors just by the design, the surface mount design, but, you still can't beat someone being able to come in here and do a really detailed alignment to, really peak receiver sensitivity. Now, granted, this is an AM radio, so yeah, it's not like it needs to be uber amazing, but still. Like I say, I have mixed feelings about that. I know I can usually get a little bit better receive sensitivity out of something if I can adjust it, but I also have to look at it from a standpoint of durability. This is just more durable. There's just this part here. Basically, what I'm talking about is this part is less likely to fail than this part. This part, if it fails, is also one heck of a lot cheaper than this part if it fails. These big tunable transformers and coils are, in the grand scheme of things, really expensive compared to that little tiny part down there. That one's a lot more durable. It's already potted. It's a solid, basically monolithic block of, wire, a ferrite core, and, whatever they use to pot this, probably, epoxy. So nothing can move. This thing can be damaged by shock. There are little teeny tiny hair-fine wires that connect from the terminals, that come up from the circuit board, the actual windings in there. Like I say, you can break the blasted things. People have this fixation with coming into a radio and, I gotta tweak everything that I see, not knowing what they're tweaking. But, so any case, there's the inside. Like I say, nice clean layout. I'm assuming this should be a good receiver. Like I say, we'll give that a test. And all the other President radios I've tested so far have been good. It's one thing I got to give them. They've really got this down to a science. I mean, not that old radios didn't, but and man, they're more durable this way. So over the long term, you'll have less problems usually with something like this. Just look at it from an electrolytic caps standpoint. There's another good example. The one part that is absolutely guaranteed to fail in anything electronic at some point in time, probably the 20 to 30 year time frame, it's going to fail. That's these electrolytic capacitors. It just happens. I don't care who makes it. Now, granted, the better quality caps you use, the longer they last. But they are all going to fail at some point. It's just science. That's why manufacturers put life expectancy ratings on electrolytic caps on their data sheets. They're going to fail eventually. Well, just by the circuit design in these, they don't need a lot of additional electrolytic capacitors. You can see there's only basically 2/3 of the radio. There aren't any. Basically from this, this side over, the only place there aren't any on this side. Nothing. Absolutely none. There's none in the final section. There's only one in the receiver circuit right here, and I'm not even sure that is in the receiver circuit. That could be a filter cap for the supply rail, possibly running up to the display board. But yeah, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, there's 9 electrolytic caps. So, even that, 20, 30 years down the line, when they start to fail, it's going to be one heck of a lot cheaper to recap this radio than it is a radio that was made, let's say, 10 years ago that has 50 or more electrolytic caps in it. So, but let me get this thing hooked up here to some test equipment. We'll feed a signal in, do some transmit testing, see what the output power is. Check receiver sensitivity on not just the AM receiver. We'll also check the weather receiver. And that's one thing I got to give President, man. Their weather receivers are really, really good. One thing I noticed was I used to have a Uniden 980 SSB as one of my bench radios. I have several. I've got there's there's one there. That's of course a President. I've got a big expensive ICOM HF rig over there from as basically a bench radio for when working on HF receivers, and then I have another one mounted up underneath the bench. That's now a McKinley. Well, that used to be a Uniden 980 SSB. That one is actually hooked up to an antenna, and I have a low-pass filter on my antenna. So a low-pass filter starts to highly attenuate signals after 30 megahertz. So, it only basically allows the HF and lower frequencies through, and anything above 30 megahertz, it starts to attenuate heavily. Well, the weather radio band is obviously a heck of a lot higher in frequency. And that gets filtered out because your low-pass filter, if you stick one in your antenna line, doesn't just filter outgoing spurious emissions, it filters everything that's coming into the radio as well. So it's filtering out the weather channel. So if that's just something to keep in mind. If you have a radio that has weather channel and you stick a low-pass filter in line, you may not receive the weather channel anymore. And I didn't used to be able to off of that antenna until I hooked up a President. I don't know what it is about these radios. Like I say, they just have such good weather receivers in these. I just stumbled across it because I was used to the other radios not being able to receive it. I accidentally turned the weather radio on one of the Presidents on that antenna one day, and I could hear one of my local, I actually hit two of them. I hit a Maryland one and a Pennsylvania NOAA weather radio transmitters, and I could hear them. Now granted, they were a little bit crackly, but yeah, it was picking, this was able to pick it up after that low-pass filter in my antenna line. So, like I say, really good FM receivers. So, anyhow, let me get this hooked up, and we'll do some testing on this. Okay, so we're set up for some functional testing now. Once I get this done, I'll reassemble the radio, and we can go over some of the features of it. So for the testing here, transmit testing and receive testing, I've got it set to channel 20. I have the noise blanker and A&L. Let's see. Oh, you can see they're both turned on. I'm going to turn them off for the receiver testing. This also has the high cut, which again will, oops. Okay, I'll get it. I'm trying to read upside down here. Put back on channel. Got those turned off. So no filtering on the receive. And it looks good on transmit. I'm surprised. It's one thing radio manufacturers, a lot of people say, I got a brand new radio, it's advertised as 4 watts, or if it's an export radio, more watts, but they're never quite there. Why is that? Well, especially a radio like this is an FCC certified radio. Manufacturers don't want to exceed that limit, because if they get caught putting out a radio with an FCC ID number on the back of it, and it does exceed that, they can get a fine. FCC at any point in time could pull a radio off the shelf, go get one, and send it to the lab for testing, and if it fails, yeah, bad for the manufacturer. So they always set output power levels and modulation a little bit below the maximum limit, because that's what that is, the maximum limit. It's just like the speed limit. If the speed limit's 55 and you're doing 55, you're fine. If you go, theoretically, or, well, it's not even theoretical, if you were going 55.1 miles an hour, or, 56 miles an hour, a police officer could give you a speeding ticket. They could. They probably won't, but they could, because you are, in essence, breaking the law. You're exceeding the speed limit. Same thing with power levels. If you exceed the limit, they could fine President. So, but what was kind of surprising was this one's really close. I mean, it's right there. It's hovering right at 36 dBm, or 4 watts. So, I have the cable here goes up to a Bird directional coupler with a 30 dB sample port. That comes down, goes to the splitter combiner, 3 dB splitter combiner, which splits the signal for the oscilloscope and the spectrum analyzer. And actually the watt meter too. So actually it goes from here up to the splitter combiner. The output of it then goes to the watt meter, and that goes to a dummy load. And then the sample port is what goes to the splitter, which goes to those two instruments. So I key the mic, that watt meter, that and that are both hooked up. So if we key the microphone, and I've already set the reference offset on the spectrum analyzer, so it's reading, the signal that it's reading is power level is accurate. So yeah, 35 point, when I'm not talking, because when I'm talking, and that's even with the microphone out at arm's length, you can see the modulation. Like I say, these electric microphones are really, really sensitive, so I almost need to hold that in my lap. Like 35.9 dB. I mean, wow, it just doesn't get much closer to 36 dB or 4 watts. I mean, 35 dB is 3.2 watts, 36 dB is 4 watts. So yeah, that's like within a gnat's whisker of being at maximum power level. We'll check modulation, so I'll just turn on an audio signal here. for modulation. Hold the microphone over that. And you can see, good clean, as you'd expect. The modulation is not over-modulated. Like I say, they're not going to go setting the modulation over. So, yeah, it looks about 95, somewhere between 90-95%. I'd probably say around 95% modulation. Looks good. Good and clean. Let's reset the spectrum analyzer here to see what the second harmonic is. Let's see, I got it on what, channel 20, so that would be 54.41 megahertz. And the span is set to 10 kilohertz. Key to mic. Okay, let's take a peak measurement. So, minus, let me just grab a calculator. So, we have pretty much 36 dB output, or actually it was 35.9. And we've got, for second harmonic, we have, let me stop talking. Actually, let's just auto scale that for a little bit better precision. Say 25 point. It just went into calibrate mode. Hold on a second. See it up there at the top edge of the screen. Okay, try that again. Let's call that 25.5. So 61.4 dB suppression of second harmonic. So that's good. We'll go back to center frequency. 7.205 megahertz, and then amplitude auto scale again to bring it back into a reasonable level. But yeah, looks good. Back to peak. So yeah, really no need to even do any adjustment on this. This is right at the where it should be for transmit. I do occasionally get radios, even from President, not just other manufacturers. Occasionally you'll get some radios, the output power, man, they set it way too low. It's like at 3 watts or like 3 1/4 or something. Yeah, this one's right at 4 watts. I mean, if they got any farther, if they got any higher, they'd be over the limit. So, you know, thumbs up. They're tuning them a little bit closer to give people every ounce of power that they paid for and still stay legal. So let's unhook that cable, and actually I can turn off the spectrum analyzer and oscilloscope. Don't be needing them anymore. I'll hook up to the communications test set here. Okay, so that is minus 115 dBm. And, oop, I just hit the, actually, okay, there's with the ASC turned on, the automatic squelch control. Where's my zoom? So you can see the little ASC logo right there, and if I turn the squelch up, that'll go away, which means we're just using the normal squelch. And if I turn the squelch up, farther, it'll eventually squelch the audio. But, so, let's just see how effective the A&L noise blanker, and my favorite on radios like this is the high cut. I think that really does a good job. If you hear that, turn the volume up. Just that hiss, your background, sizzling bacon, some people call it. So we'll turn on the A&L, noise blanker, both. And then what really helps to get rid of that hiss and static is the high cut. Because the high cut is filtering off. It's basically just they're adding a capacitor into circuit. And I'd need to look at the schematic to verify it. But in most radios, what that does is it just adds a little bit of an extra filter capacitor in line, or an RC filter network, to cut off the high frequency coming out of the speaker, which is where most of your noise is. So that works really well. Receive sensitivities, good. Let's see where they have these squelch set at. So I'm turning the squelch up the whole way. You can see the knob's turned up the whole way. Let's see where that's set at. Let's see, what do I want? Generator RF level. Let's go to minus 53. Just about there. So I'm inputting minus 53 dBm, which would be 1,000 microvolts. And I'll just start increasing it. See where the squelch breaks. Okay, right at minus 46.8 dBm, and the squelch broke. So let's see how accurate the signal meter is. We'll go to minus 73. And it looks like we're right on S9, so it looks like the meter calibration's good. No reason it shouldn't be. Let's check the. I wanted to check the weather radio, so let's see. 162.4. 162.4 megahertz. And we want modulation FM. And turn this to weather. Now all we need to do is, let's see. Oh, no, don't turn the radio off. Weather, okay, turn the volume up a little, and okay, and there it is. I've got the signal generator set to 162.4 megahertz FM, and that's at a level of minus 73 dBm, so a booming signal. So let's just turn that down to start at minus 110. Turn it up a little bit so you can hear it. And I'll just start turning down and see where it squelches. So right at about 123.5 or minus 123.5 dBm. It's squelched, and we'll turn this back up. See where it unsquelches. Minus 118 dBm. So has a good FM receiver in it. So I'm gonna have to say it's a nice working little radio. So let me zoom back out here. Let me get this unhooked. We'll get the cover stuck back on it, and we'll hook it up to an antenna. And I don't know if I've even had a radio actually hooked up to an antenna today. I don't know if there's any skip or not. We'll see if there's anything to listen to. And I can go over some of the other features, like the memory and some of the other stuff. You can change the color of the display and whatnot. So I'll be back. Okay, so yeah, airwaves are dead right now. I do have a couple channels programmed in. This does have 3 memory channels. So down here has basically each of these buttons. My cord's in my way here. Each of these buttons has 3 functions. The function that's printed on the button itself is available just by pressing the button. If you long press any of these buttons, that would be the menu function that's above the button. And then to get to the bottom functions, you need to hit the function, or the function memory key, and then push any of those buttons, and then that activates any of the lower, basically the lowercase functions of those buttons. This does have a Roger beep. Unfortunately, in my opinion, that's going to be one of the downfalls of this radio. Much like a lot of the other radios, and it's not just a President thing, I've even seen that now on some other makes, the built-in Roger beeps, for some reason, they're just not very loud. I don't know if that's an FCC thing. I know they changed that, because Roger beeps did not used to be allowed on CB. They had a rules change, but I'm almost beginning to wonder, did the FCC set a maximum modulation percentage limit and set it really low? Because it is louder than, what was the radio that it's pretty much useless on? Was that like the McKinley, I think? This one's, it's a little better, but it's not that great either. Yeah, we'll get to that. The other thing that I probably don't like about this, now for me personally, using a radio, it wouldn't bother me. It doesn't have a mic gain. Now, as a radio tech, when I'm sitting here working on the bench, I very frequently need to be able to monitor, use a microphone, talk into it, and be able to listen to my demodulated audio either on a communications test set or with just a monitor radio, bench radio. So let's say, that radio right there. The problem is when you're only sitting a foot or two away from the receiving speaker, you get a feedback squeal, so it's hard to listen to yourself. It's nice to have a radio that has a mic gain, because then I can turn the mic gain down. It doesn't have a mic gain, at least not that I could find. Also looked, even looked in the manual here and couldn't find one. Other than that, I pretty much like all the functions. It has the key beep, which can be turned on and off, and that Roger beep. So to do those, that's the two things that you have to turn the radio off to set, is the Roger beep and the key beep. So anytime you hit a button, that beep sound you hear. So if we hold the, we're going to be using either the channel up or the channel down button. So if I hold the channel up button and turn the radio on, it's right now I have it set to where the Roger beep and the key beep are turned off. So if we turn it off and then hold the up button again, turn the radio on, you'll see the little music logo right there. That means that the Roger beep is turned on. And then turn it off, and if we hold the channel down button, that just turned the BP is now illuminated on the display, and that means, and you heard it, so now we have the key beep function is turned on. It's really nice they made that selectable, because I personally hate key beeps. I don't need to know that I just pushed a button. I just pushed it. I don't need the radio to tell me that I pushed it. Like if you want to set channels, let's say you wanted to set channel 22 as memory number 3, you would just hit the function memory button. Okay, little F will flash there, and then long press whichever memory you want to put that into, either 1, 2, or 3. And I just put it into memory 3. I long press that button, and now you can see it says memory 3. If you want to use the scan function, you just push, remember, a long press of any of these buttons enables the top functions. So if we long press the scan, you'll see that it's scanning the memory channels right now. And if we hit the frequency or the function memory key over here, that'll switch it into where it scans through all channels. It'll go through all 40 channels, just continuously scroll through them. If we push it again, it'll go back to scanning just the memory channels. So get it out of memory there, and let's put it down to channel 20. And I'll flip over to a dummy load now. Now, this is one thing I found interesting. Remember I was saying how good the weather receivers are in these radios? This coax cable comes over to the BK1040 right there. That runs up to an antenna switch. Now I currently have this set in the internal position. So this coax cable is being terminated at a 50 ohm dummy load inside the communications test set, which is shielded. Or not communications test set, inside the BK1040, but it is shielded. And then the coax cable for the antenna goes up to another switch that then goes to an antenna or selectable dummy loads. But I have that set to dummy load, so there's no antenna connected at all. other than the coax cable is connected to the 1040 over there. And if I go into weather, I can receive. I think I hear. Yeah, I can actually get 2 channels. Now if I go over and actually switch over to the antennas, and remember, I said that the low-pass filter, I have a low-pass filter in line with that antenna, so it's blocking, that's like 70 dB of attenuation, I think. This thing's still picking it up. So that's the antenna hooked up now, and most of the static has gone away.
The 24-hour low ending this morning was 40 at Shepherdstown.
But yeah, impressive is all I can say. Like I say, they have really, really good weather receivers, and the regular AM radio receiver in here is fine too. The CB receiver. But yeah, it gets me how well those work. That even with a low pass filter in line, I can still receive the weather channel. Where other radios that have weather band, if I use hook up to an antenna with a low-pass filter, I can't receive it. It just will not unsquelch. There's not enough signal left. These things are really sensitive. So let me show you what the one other feature this has. This does have talkback. Okay, so if we key, let's see, am I in dummy load? Yeah. Get back out of that. We'll switch down to 17. I've got another radio turned on for some testing, so you can actually hear me transmitting in this. But so I'll switch down to 17, so I'm not on that channel right now. But when the microphone's keyed, you'll notice that the up-down buttons here also have TB printed on them. That's for talkback. So if you key the microphone, push the button up, you can set. Eventually we're going to getting to a point where it's starting to feedback because I have it turned up so loud. But then if you just hit the down button, that turns the talkback volume down. And if I go back up, you can hear its talkback is turned back up now. And now if I want to turn the talkback off, all I got to do is hit the function memory key, and then that switches the talkback off. But yes, this also does have a SWR mode. So let's see, what was that? Hit the function up. Okay, now that's with the microphone unkeyed. I hit the function up button. That switches the meter from either RF, receive and transmit signal, over to the SWR. So hit the function key up, and you can see the scales now change to SWR. Key the microphone, you can see we're really good SWR. And then if I function, hit the button again, and I just noticed it says local, so I'm going to, because this does not have an RF gain control on it, so I'm going to assume that should be, it's one thing I forgot to look up in the manual, that's probably going to be an attenuated input signal. So actually, let's go back to the antenna, we'll unsquelch, and if I do a function down, yes, that's what that is. That's an attenuator. So it does not have a rotary adjustable RF gain control, but if you're talking to somebody, like you're driving down the road and somebody right behind you or right in front of you, they're blowing your doors off, their signal's so strong, that will add attenuation to the RF input for your receiver. So yeah, to go to the local mode or switch back, just hit the function key and the down button, and you can see that, yeah, it went from like a S4 down to nothing showing at all. So yeah, it's a pretty heavy attenuator. But like I say, that's good for close communications if you're talking to somebody that's riding your bumper, basically. Okay, back over to dummy load. Back up to channel 20 now. And what I have set is the Yaesu over here is set on 27205 for receive. I'm going to turn the volume up. Now that is not attached to an antenna that's currently hooked up to a dummy load as well. And you can hear me talking into the microphone there. But that's the problem, not me talking into the microphone. Audio's fine. The problem is the beep. The beep level coming out of the microphone is just way too, or the Roger beep. So when I unkey, listen for that little beep. It's just not very loud. It is audible though. Let me turn that radio off. I think, and I'd have to double check, but I think it was the McKinley. That was one of the first radios I noticed where it had a really low Roger beep level. I think this one is higher than that one. I'd need to do some testing here, but that one was almost inaudible. It was so low. This one does appear to be louder. Actually, what we can do is just turn on the oscilloscope again. We'll just take a look at the modulation on the scope there. Wait for the oscilloscope to boot up. And everything should still be set up to the same channel because I haven't done anything since I turned it off. Okay. Yeah, there's like maybe 15%, 10-15% modulation if you're lucky. I'm just continuously just keying and unkeying. yeah, that's that's a really, really low modulation level. Like I say, I need to check. That's something and I might leave a comment down below after I get done this video. I might pull up the most recent FCC regs to see what. I gotta find them first. Trying to find regulations on the FCC, sometimes can be a challenge. To find the actual regulation, but yeah, I'd be curious to see, did they possibly, maybe that's the reason the modulation levels are so low on a lot of these, because like I say, this is an FCC certified radio, so Uncle Sam has approved this radio for use. But I think that pretty much covers anything. I'd give it a thumbs up. Like I say, the only thing, the Roger beat levels low, would be nice to have a mic gain control. That's not exactly something where, they could just reprogram into this. That's just the design of the radio. It doesn't have a mic gain. For most people, like I say, for me using it, if I stuck this in a car, that wouldn't be a problem. I never use mic gain controls. The only time I do use mic gain controls is here on this bench, so I don't get that feedback squeal, just like in the last example where I was talking into the microphone on this radio and monitoring with another radio. I'll get a feedback squeal. That's the only time I really need it, but I know some people do like that, so just be aware if this does not have that. Otherwise, one function I'm not really going to cover it. I don't know how many people actually use this. I might be surprised. Maybe a lot of people do, but is the Vox. This does have Vox, so if you look right there, the bottom function, or the lowercase function on this button is Vox. So you can go in and set your Vox setting, your volume, and it's all here. Oh, and I didn't do colors either. So there's green, blue. I guess you can't half see that, can you? Yeah, you wanted to see my kneecaps, didn't you? So orange, green, and blue. Now looking in the viewfinder, the color that I'm at least seeing in the viewfinder, I don't know what it'll look like in the actual video. It's darker in person than it is in the viewfinder, yet color-wise. Yeah, even that, that one's a fairly good representation, at least what I'm seeing in my viewfinder. And let's try the green. It's a little bit darker color in person than I'm seeing on the viewfinder. Like I say, that may be different in person. But yeah, this does have Vox. So yeah, there's apparently, matter of fact, you can see as I'm talking, I've got holding the microphone here. Actually, yeah, I'm not doing anything other than talking. I'm not holding the button, and you can see me talking. You can see the modulation up on the oscilloscope there. Yeah. Oh. So yeah, at the instant I make any sound, it switches into transmit. So yes, the Vox function does work. So let's turn that off. No, okay, just hit the function buttons. All I had to do to take it out. But yes, it does have all the Vox settings here. Vox set, anti-Vox, delay time, and actually it's still turned on because yes, because I'm transmitting. Oh, okay, that's all the settings. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'd have to play. I don't use Vox. That's just something I've never been a fan of. I don't know how in the heck you turn it off. I've got it turned on now. Memory key, short press Vox key to activate. It appears on the Vox to move the screen. Key. How the hell do I turn it off? I'm going to have to play with this now. Well, that doesn't do it. Turn the radio off, maybe? Ah, it went away. Well, all else fails, turn the radio off. But yeah, so yeah, you can change all the sensitivity, the anti-Vox, your delay time, and everything for Vox setting. But yeah, so it does work. Like I said, I just never used that function. I didn't want to mention that though. But yeah, so yeah, good looking radio. I like the front firing speakers. Like I say, it's more practical. The speaker is facing in your direction, not a floorboard or the ceiling or off to the sides or out the back of the radio. And honestly, with radios like this, I don't use an external speaker, where normally I use external speakers in mobiles just because of that. I've found that, like the McKinley I have mounted in a vehicle that I use for some testing of like antennas, I don't have an external speaker hooked up to that, where I usually always have an external speaker hooked up to mobile radios. I don't, because it has the front firing speaker. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, Mike, but it's just an AM radio, it doesn't have sideband. Honestly, people, most of the radios sold are AM radios. Truck drivers, most truck drivers don't use sideband, so this is a perfect video radio for that. If you're off-roading, stuff like that, you don't need sideband. Sideband is a niche. I think that's kind of the specialty market, the niche. Yes, there are people that use that. Most people just use AM though, so I think this radio would be fine. Like I say, it's a good out of the box, good receiver, good transmit. Has lots of fancy functions. Does have the dual watch as well, so yeah, it'll monitor. You don't have to use the scan function. It'll just monitor 2 channels. It's got the weather radio built in with the alert, so yes, it does say alert above that, so if you long press the button, that'll turn on whatever weather channel you have the radio set to. So let's say, channel 1, if you get out of weather then, and long press, so when it's in CB mode, you'll see it says alert there. But if a weather alert gets broadcast on the channel that you have set for your local weather, that will switch the radio over to the weather channel, so you can get your tornado warning or hurricane warning, flood warning, whatever the case might be. But so that's always nice. So there you go. There's my review of the President Johnson 2 USA. Worth buying? I think yeah. If you're looking for an AM radio that you don't need mic gain on, this is a good radio, a good selection. Nice. And if you're looking for a radio, like I said, I'd need to double check, but this looks exactly the same size as a President McKinley, so this should be DIN sized. I don't know if they say that in the manual. Probably if you go, I know if you go to the website, the President's website, they always have, that's one of the things they have right there that's easy to see, is they tell you the actual dimensions. They have the dimensions here, but it doesn't say if it's DIN, but I'd almost swear to it. Actually, let's take a look at the box again. I'm not seeing DIN, and yes, made in Vietnam, just in case you're wondering. Doesn't say on the box either, at least not that I see. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's DIN now. Look, if that's if that has to be DIN, just do yourself a favor. Just go check President's website. Like I say, if you go to their website for this and look at this radio, I know for a fact that they put that. There's a little logo there. They put DIN for sizing. So there you go, President Johnson 2.